My beloved, the hour is darker than it seems. We are not merely wrestling with politics, economics, or the flesh and blood of this world. We are standing face to face with spiritual forces that seek to destroy everything that is holy, righteous, and rooted in the truth of God. There are demons not just in dark corners of forgotten places, but hiding behind the eyes of smiling strangers, sleeping in the hearts of the proud, speaking through the tongues of liars, and dwelling in the spirits of the unrepentant. And I have come to tell you today, with boldness, with the fire of heaven in my bones, that God has given you the power to silence those demons. You are not helpless. You are not voiceless. You are not meant to bow before fear. You are called to rise up, filled with the Spirit of God, and command the darkness to flee. Let me tell you, when demons see the authority of God alive in you, they tremble. They do not flee because of your wisdom, your eloquence, or your strength. They flee because of the power of the one who dwells in you. The reason many people are tormented and oppressed is not because demons are strong, but because people have grown too silent. We've become quiet in the presence of evil. We've tolerated lies in the name of peace. We've let demons speak, act, influence, and manipulate, while we sit in comfort, convincing ourselves it's not our battle. But if you carry the breath of God in your lungs, it is your battle. If you walk through this world with a conscience and a calling, it is your war. And you do not fight it with fists. You fight it with fire. The fire of God. The fire that consumes sin, exposes deceit, and silences devil. Some of you have been surrounded by people who smile in your face and stab you in your spirit. People who wear masks of kindness but are vessels of darkness. People whose presence always drains your joy, disturbs your peace, and stirs confusion in your home. That is not ordinary behavior. That is demonic influence. And you don't need to confront them with rage or revenge. You need to silence the spirit behind them with the power of God. When demons rise in others to attack your mind, confuse your decisions, or shake your faith, you don't argue. You stand still in the truth of God and let His voice roar through you. Speak the truth in power. Walk in righteousness. Refuse to play the games of the wicked. You silence demons not by shouting louder than them, but by being so filled with God that your silence becomes thunder in their ears. The reason demons use people is because people give them space. They open doors through jealousy, through lust, through greed, through bitterness. The moment someone harbors hate and refuses to repent, a doorway opens, and the enemy walks in, unnoticed, unchallenged, and unafraid. But I say to you today, if you belong to God, then it is time to walk through your home, through your relationships, through your memories, and close every door. Tell the devil you cannot live here anymore. Tell the enemy this territory belongs to God. And tell every demon hiding in the shadows of those around you, you will not speak in my presence. You will not twist my joy. You will not disturb the peace that God has established in my soul. Demons often speak through manipulation. They twist words. They plant seeds of doubt. They whisper half-truths wrapped in emotional poison. When someone comes into your life and constantly tries to drain your confidence, disturb your clarity, or make you question what God has already told you, be careful. That is not just a toxic personality. That is spiritual interference. Do not play with it. Do not tolerate it. Silence it by separating yourself, by declaring the authority of God, by refusing to be moved. God does not call you to live at the mercy of emotional manipulators. He calls you to be a watchman, vigilant, discerning, and unafraid. And what do you do when that demon doesn't come through others, but rises up in your own thoughts? What do you do when your mind becomes the battlefield, when your own spirit becomes restless, when voices you never invited begin to torment you with fear, shame, or despair, I'll tell you what you do. You rise up in the middle of the night. You stand up while everyone else sleeps. You lift your hands and declare, my mind belongs to God. My soul is guarded. My peace is protected. My future is sealed by the will of God, and no demon will invade this temple. You do not reason with demons. You do not coddle confusion. You command the storm to be still, not because of who you are, but because of who God is in you. I know many of you have been silent for too long. You've been intimidated, you've been mocked, you've been made to feel like your discernment was too harsh, too radical, too intense. But listen to me now, your spiritual radar was never broken, it was sharpened by God. The reason you feel the tension, the discomfort, the spiritual dissonance when certain people speak is because God is showing you what others refuse to see. You are not imagining it, you are being equipped. You are not being paranoid, you are being prepared. When demons speak through the mouths of others to curse, to control, to deceive, you are being called to speak less with your tongue and more with your spirit. Walk into the room with the authority of God and say nothing and watch how the demons panic. Your presence, when anchored in God, is warfare. And don't be mistaken, some demons know Scripture better than saints. They will use the words of truth to trap the innocent. They will twist holy things to justify wicked motives. But God is not fooled, and if you are filled with God, neither will you be. Discernment is your weapon, holiness is your armor, and silence, when led by God, is a thunderclap against hell itself. Don't argue with demons. Don't entertain their theater. Don't chase their chaos. Speak the word of God in your life. Live clean before Him and stand still as they crumble under the weight of His presence in you. I'm not here to entertain you. I'm not here to give you comfortable words. I'm here to shake you awake. God did not save you to be passive. He called you to be a vessel of fire, to walk through this dark world as a torch in the hands of heaven. Demons are not scared of religion. They are terrified of righteousness. They laugh at shallow prayers, but they tremble when someone truly surrenders to God. If your life is lukewarm, you're no threat to the enemy. But if your heart is ablaze with truth, purity, and fearless obedience, then every step you take is a strike against the gates of darkness. And I speak to those who have been under demonic attack for far too long. The oppression, the nightmares, the confusion, the fatigue that cannot be explained. Listen to me. The battle is spiritual. The weapon must be spiritual. You cannot outthink a demon. You must outshine it. Fill your atmosphere with God. Fill your mouth with praise. Fill your life with righteousness. Make no space for darkness, and it will have no power over you. Walk through your home and cast out every shadow. Anoint your walls with declarations of God's authority. Do not wait for the battle to knock again. Take it to the enemy's camp. Do not beg for peace. Command it, for it is your inheritance from God. Some of you have been crying for freedom while still feeding the demons through the people you entertain. You cannot break strongholds while dancing with the voices that built them. It's time to cut off access. Silence the enemy's messengers by removing their platform. Not every friend is innocent. Not every conversation is harmless. Not every smile is sincere. If it steals your joy, if it clouds your mind, if it disrupts your spiritual clarity, let it go. Cut it off. Break the tie. Walk away. Not in hate, but in holy separation. For what fellowship does light have with darkness? The closer you get to God, the more the demons in people will manifest. Don't be surprised when people start turning on you. Don't be shocked when gossip rises, when strange resistance shows up, when people you once trusted begin to act like strangers. That is not a sign to stop. That is confirmation you are walking deeper into the will of God. The demons in others are reacting to the God in you. Keep walking, keep standing, keep praying, and most of all, stay clean. Do not allow their warfare to provoke you into sin. Stay righteous. Stay anchored. Stay holy. Your silence, when rooted in God, is the most deafening sound to hell. You silence demons in others not by overpowering them, but by overpowering the spirit they carry. When you walk in peace, it torments their chaos. When you speak in truth, it burns their lies. When you respond with holiness, it destroys their manipulation. And when you refuse to be provoked, their weapon fails. Your purity is your loudest sermon. Your self-betrayal is your greatest weapon. And your connection with God is your unshakable fortress. Many want deliverance but refuse discipline. They want freedom from demons without changing the environment that invites them. Let me be clear. God will give you power, but you must walk in obedience. You cannot rebuke a spirit you still flirt with. You cannot silence a demon whose voice you still entertain. There must be a decision, a final, unwavering decision that your life will no longer be a playground for darkness, that your mind, your heart, your soul belongs to God, and anything that does not align must go. And let me tell you something you must never forget. Demons cannot take what you refuse to surrender. They cannot steal what you've already placed in the hands of God. When your heart belongs fully to God, when your loyalty is sealed in His truth, when your obedience is rooted deep in His commands, there is a wall around you that no devil can penetrate. But the moment you begin to doubt, to entertain rebellion, to open your heart to bitterness or pride, you begin to tear down the very hedge that was meant to protect you. And demons are not patient. They are waiting for that one crack in your soul. But I declare to you today, do not give them an inch. Not in your thoughts, not in your relationships, not in your reactions. Fill every inch of your being with the presence of God, and the enemy will have nowhere to land. We often think that to silence the darkness we must raise our voices. But hear me, true power is not found in volume, it's found in alignment with God. There are people who shout loudly in prayer but live quietly in sin. There are others who barely whisper yet shake the realm of the unseen because their hearts are anchored in the holiness of God. Demons recognize authority, not noise. And authority comes from obedience. When you live in obedience to God, you don't need to chase devils. They flee from the sound of your footsteps. You don't need to convince anyone of your strength. Your stillness in the storm testifies of the one who walks with you. Your peace becomes your voice. Your discipline becomes your sword. Your silence becomes your roar. And let me warn you, there are people in your life right now who don't know they're being used. They don't recognize that the enemy has slipped into their words, their attitudes, their suggestions. Not everyone who offers you advice is speaking from God. Some of them are being used to confuse your direction, to question your worth, to distract you from your assignment. You must test every spirit. Not every kind face is holy. Not every smiling mouth is clean. You must become spiritually sharp, not judgmental, but discerning. You must learn how to sense the presence of God and detect when something has shifted. When someone who once encouraged you begins to subtly drain your fire, it may not be them, it may be the Spirit speaking through them. That is when you stand firm and silent, not out of fear, but out of spiritual clarity. And in your silence, you wage war. There is power in choosing not to respond to every provocation. That is not weakness, it is wisdom. The enemy thrives on reactions. He uses conflict to stir chaos. He uses offense to open wounds. But when you do not respond as expected, when you remain grounded in the stillness of God, You rob the enemy of his strategy. Silence is not surrender, it is submission to a higher authority. When you let God handle your battles, he silences your enemies more perfectly than your arguments ever could. So when the demon rises in others and their words come like arrows, stand. Let your silence echo louder than their noise. Let your holiness speak. Let your consistency break their plans. Some of you are surrounded by people who are not at war with you. They are at war with the God in you. They are disturbed not by your actions, but by your peace. Your presence becomes a mirror, exposing their compromise. And so the enemy in them rises to disrupt you, to disarm you, to distract you. But don't fall for the trap. Don't try to explain yourself to those who are blind to truth. Don't try to gain approval from hearts that serve confusion. You are not here to please the crowd. You are here to carry God, and when you carry God with conviction, you will disturb every room that is out of alignment with Him. That disturbance is not your fault. It is your confirmation. And when you begin to walk with God in true sincerity, you will notice something peculiar. People will begin to avoid you, not because you are unkind, but because their spirits are uncomfortable. They will say you've changed. They will say you've become too intense, too serious, too deep. Let them talk. Let them drift. You are not called to stay at the level where demons are comfortable. You are called to ascend. You are called to grow. You are called to carry a presence so clean, so strong, that every unclean thing must either flee or repent. If they cannot walk with you, it's not your loss. It's God making room for higher company. Some of the loudest demons are hiding behind religious masks. They quote truth with no obedience. They perform holiness but live in rebellion. And if you are not rooted in God, you will be deceived by appearances. That is why you must seek God in private. Let Him show you what the eye cannot see. Let Him sharpen your spirit so that you are no longer impressed by charisma, but moved only by character. You will silence demons, not just by what you say, but by what you see, the ability to see through the lies, to see through the charm, to see through the act. That is a gift from God. Cherish it, guard it, and use it to protect the territory God has given you. Don't think for a moment that spiritual battles happen only during grand moments of conflict. No, they happen in the small decisions, the conversations you allow, the content you consume, the attitudes you entertain. These are the altars where victory is won or lost. When you let bitterness live in your heart, you've given the enemy permission. When you nurture pride, you've created a landing place. But when you humble yourself before God, when you walk in peace, when you choose forgiveness, you tear down the platform of the enemy. You remove his influence. You silence his voice. And the more you do this, the more you reclaim your atmosphere, your home, your soul. There is something unstoppable about a person who walks in holy silence, who doesn't need to defend themselves because they know God will, who doesn't need to shout to prove their power because they know power is proven by peace. When you walk into a room and say nothing, yet every demon becomes restless, that is spiritual authority. And you don't get that from books, you don't get that from imitation, and you get that from the secret place with God, from the moments no one sees, from the prayers no one hears, from the surrender no one applauds. That's where your fire is born. That's where your voice is sharpened. That's where your authority is sealed. So I ask you today, are you willing to walk in that kind of power? Are you willing to give up the comfort of being liked, to carry the cost of being anointed? Are you willing to stop explaining yourself to demons and start commanding them to leave? Are you willing to silence not just the demons in others, but the ones that have tried to live inside your own fears, your own doubts, your own habits? Because this battle is not for the passive. It is for the surrendered. And once you surrender to God fully, you will no longer fear what man can do. You will no longer be shaken by the enemy's tactics. You will stand unmovable, unshaken, unbothered, because you will know the power that dwells within you. And to those who feel surrounded, who feel like the darkness has crept into your relationships, your workplace, even your family, listen closely. The darkness is not a sign of your defeat. It is a sign that you are carrying the light. Do not be afraid of the pressure. It is proof that you are breaking through. You do not need to fight with flesh. You do not need to battle with words. You need only to walk with God so closely that every spirit around you is forced to reveal itself. And when they do, do not panic. Do not shrink. Let them manifest. Let them hiss. Let them threaten. And then in the calm authority of one who walks with God, speak with your life. Live in obedience. Live in truth. Live in strength. And watch how every demon begins to fall silent, not because of your might, but because the presence of God will not be mocked. You were not called to live at the mercy of spirits you have authority over. You were not called to adapt to darkness. You were called to drive it out. Not by noise, not by performance, but by purity, by discipline, by total surrender to the will of God. This is your inheritance. This is your assignment. And when you accept it, you will begin to notice that the same people who once tried to distract you begin to distance themselves. That is not rejection, it is deliverance. That is not abandonment, it is elevation. Let them go. Let the demons in them flee. Let the old attachments dissolve. You are moving into a realm where only truth can survive. Stay grounded. Stay silent when you must. Speak when God commands. And above all, live in such a way that demons cannot remain comfortable around you. Let your purity provoke them. Let your clarity expose them. Let your walk with God silence them. Before you ever say a word, this is the way. This is the call. This is the fire that burns in those who know their God and fear no enemy. Let it be you. There is a sacred weight that falls upon those who walk closely with God, a holy fire that makes you dangerous to darkness. You may not see it with your natural eyes, but the spiritual world knows who you are. When you wake up, the forces of evil take notice. When you open your mouth to speak truth, the foundations of deception tremble. When you bow your head in secret prayer, mountains in the unseen realm begin to shake, not because you are powerful in yourself, but because you are fully surrendered to the one who holds all power, and that surrender is what silences demons. Not your charisma, not your status, not your knowledge. It is the undeniable evidence that God lives in you and speaks through you. Demons cannot tolerate purity. They choke on it. They cannot breathe in the presence of a heart that is fully devoted to God. This is why your obedience is warfare. This is why your discipline is resistance. Every time you choose integrity over compromise, every time you walk away from sin without applause, every time you resist the temptation to retaliate and instead guard your peace, you are silencing a demon that was hoping you'd give it a voice. You must understand that spiritual warfare does not always look like dramatic confrontations. It looks like a mother praying in the stillness of her room. It looks like a man refusing to break his values for quick money. It looks like someone keeping their soul clean while the world around them crumbles in corruption. That is real authority. That is how demons are silenced, not by spectacle, but by sacred discipline. You don't need to confront every person who is carrying a demon. You just need to make sure you're not carrying one yourself. That's where the power begins. We are often quick to spot the darkness in others, but slow to examine the shadows within. Let me tell you the truth with love. If your pride is louder than your humility, the enemy already has a foothold. If your bitterness speaks more often than your faith, then the demon is not around you, it's speaking through you. But the good news is this: when you submit every part of yourself to God, your thoughts, your emotions, your desires, then the enemy loses every hiding place. Your soul becomes a fortress, and every demon that once whispered in your ear is cast out in silence. There are people in your life right now whose purpose is to pull you away from God. They may not even know it, but their influence is an assignment. They bring confusion to your clarity. They stir emotions that cloud your vision. They speak in ways that make your spirit feel unsettled, and you've been tolerating it for the sake of peace. But hear me, peace with people at the cost of your peace with God is not peace at all. It's bondage. And God is calling you to walk free. Not every relationship is meant to be kept. Not every bond is sacred. If it compromises your walk with God, it must be reevaluated. There are people who become doorways for demons simply because you refuse to shut the door. And when you shut that door, shut it with conviction, not fear. Do not walk away timidly wondering if you're making the right decision. If your spirit is restless around someone, if your peace disappears in their presence, if your joy begins to wither after every encounter, God is speaking, and His voice doesn't need an explanation. When you choose God's clarity over man's confusion, you silence every spirit that has tried to keep you stuck. And some of you have been stuck not because God hasn't opened the door, but because you haven't walked away from the wrong ones. You cannot walk into your divine future while dragging the voices of demonic distraction behind you. And let me say something that may shake your soul. Silencing demons sometimes looks like standing alone. It looks like choosing isolation over contamination. It looks like being misunderstood because your standards are too high for the world around you. But God sees, God knows, and in your stillness, He strengthens you. He builds you in the quiet. He trains your hands for battle when no one else is watching. And by the time the enemy sees you again, you'll be carrying such authority that silence will be your greatest weapon. You won't need to shout. You won't need to explain. Your presence will do the talking. And every demon that once mocked you will have no choice but to fall back. There is a realm of power that only opens to those who walk blameless before God. Not perfect, but blameless. Blameless in motive, blameless in heart, blameless in commitment. That's when your shadow becomes a sermon. That's when your steps shake the atmosphere. That's when your words begin to carry weight that breaks chains. The demons in others won't even wait for confrontation. They will manifest in discomfort simply because you are in the room. Because God is in the room through you. You are no longer just a person. You have become a vessel of divine order. A living rebuke to every spirit that thrives in darkness. Yes? And do not underestimate the power of your peace. Peace is not passive. Peace is violent to the enemy. When you carry peace in the middle of chaos, it interrupts the strategy of every demon present. Peace confuses confusion. Peace breaks the cycle of emotional manipulation. Peace stops the fire of conflict before it starts. When someone comes at you with bitterness, and you respond with calm authority, it's not weakness, it's warfare. You've just silenced the demon that hoped to turn your heart into a battlefield. God gives you peace not just to comfort you, but to arm you. And there will come a time, if it hasn't already, when someone close to you will suddenly shift. You'll see a side of them that shocks you. You'll hear words that don't sound like theirs. You'll feel an energy that disturbs your spirit. And you'll want to rationalize it. You'll want to ignore it. But God will press upon your soul, this is not what it appears to be. In that moment, you must choose discernment over comfort. Do not confront the person, confront the spirit. not through loud debates, but through spiritual clarity. Walk in righteousness, walk in silence. Let the truth of God be your shield, and watch how the demon can no longer perform through them in your presence. Your spiritual atmosphere will become so charged with the presence of God that deception dies before it can speak. You are not called to live under the influence of other people's demons. You are called to walk in divine influence, under the power, protection, and purity of God alone. And when you walk that path without compromise, your very life becomes a declaration, a warning to darkness, a beacon to the lost, a refuge for those searching for the truth. That is what it means to be set apart, not by words, but by fire, not by appearance, but by authority, not by charisma, but by the weight of God's presence in your daily choices. This is the hour to rise, to shake off the need to be understood, to reject the fear of isolation, to silence every lie with the stillness of truth. Let the world rage, let the demons tremble, let the voices rise around you. You do not need to outshout them. You only need to outstand them. Stand longer, stand stronger, stand cleaner, stand deeper. The one who stands with God never stands alone. And when God stands with you, no demon can remain near. You must understand, silencing demons is not an act of external noise. It is the power of internal mastery under God's dominion. It is the strength of a soul so aligned with God that no deception can enter, no provocation can stir, no accusation can penetrate. When your life becomes a sanctuary, demons are exiled from your presence. This kind of authority does not come by accident. It is forged in private battles, it is earned in secret obedience, and it is sustained by relentless submission to God alone. Demons do not flee from people, they flee from the holiness of God that rests upon people who are clean, surrendered, and fearless. Let me speak directly to the soul that has been afflicted, not by demons within, but by demons around. You've been walking among the possessed, dealing with their manipulation, their passive control, their subtle sabotage, and their whispered lies. But I declare this into your spirit now. God did not place you among them to be broken. He placed you there to be a light. And where there is light, darkness must retreat. Stop questioning your presence. Stop apologizing for your discernment. Stop dimming your clarity to make others comfortable. God is using you as a vessel of exposure, and exposure always creates discomfort. When God reveals what is hiding in others, their reaction is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to remain unwavering, rooted in truth, consistent in peace, and unmoved by resistance. Demons operate in shadows. They thrive in secrecy. They hide behind charm, behind false humility, behind carefully calculated emotions. But when God gives you discernment, you begin to see not what people say, but what spirit they serve. Do not dismiss that insight. Do not doubt what God shows you in prayer. When your spirit becomes disturbed in the presence of someone who speaks well but walks in darkness, that is not paranoia. It is divine alertness. And to silence what is speaking through them, you do not need to confront the person. You need to walk so deeply in obedience that your presence disrupts their performance, that your peace confuses their disorder, that your faith shatters their illusion. And let me tell you, the greatest silence comes not from fear, but from conviction. You do not need to explain yourself to everyone. You do not need to correct every lie. When your life is aligned with God, the fruit will speak, the blessing will testify, the favor will reveal, and the very demons that tried to discredit you will choke on the outcome of your obedience. You don't need revenge. You don't need vindication. You need consistency. Walk clean, walk steady, walk quiet if you must, but walk with God and everything that rises against you will fall without a sound. Now listen to this carefully. Some demons only respond to distance. You cannot cast them out with kindness. You cannot negotiate with what was assigned to destroy you. There are people whose presence in your life is not coincidence, it is strategy from the kingdom of darkness. And they will not leave until you close the door, until you stop answering the call, until you stop opening the emotional window, until you stop giving them permission to influence your state of mind. Every conversation with them is a transaction of energy. Every reply is an invitation to torment. Cut it off. Block the frequency. Delete the access. Not out of hate, but out of reverence for the peace God has placed inside you. And if you're wondering how to identify them, it's simple. Their presence always leaves you feeling confused, drained, second-guessing yourself. They never uplift your spirit. They provoke it. They never celebrate your clarity. They cloud it. They feed on your attention. They sow little seeds of insecurity. They twist truth into manipulation. And the longer you tolerate their access, the more your atmosphere becomes contaminated. You silence those demons by refusing to engage the voice they speak through. You don't owe demons closure. You owe God your full obedience. But don't think for one moment that this battle is limited to people. No, some of the loudest demons speak from within. The voice of fear, the whisper of unworthiness, the constant nagging of past shame. These are not just thoughts. They are weapons designed to dismantle your purpose, derail your peace, and distance you from God. But here is the truth. Every voice that contradicts what God has spoken over you is a lie. And every lie has a source. You must become ruthless in rejecting what does not align with the truth of God. You do not have to believe every thought. You do not have to obey every feeling. You have authority, and your thoughts must bow to the will of God, not the will of your pain. Do not let your trauma become a throne for demons to sit on. Do not let your heartbreak become a microphone for the enemy to speak through. You have the right to silence every voice that says you're not good enough. You have the right to command peace over the noise in your mind. And you don't do this by striving. You do it by surrender. You do it by declaring, God, you rule this mind. You rule this soul, you rule this heart, and every thought that rises against your truth must be cast down. That is how you win, that is how you silence the unclean spirits within you, through full and fearless surrender. This is not the time to be passive. This is not the time to seek comfort in the company of compromise. This is the time to stand, fully armored by God's truth, unwavering in your pursuit of purity. Your power lies not in performance, but in presence. When you are filled with God, demons have nowhere to land. They may circle, but they cannot invade. They may shout, but they cannot shake you. They may tempt, but they cannot triumph, because God will uphold those who walk uprightly, and no force of darkness can overpower a soul guarded by Him. You are not fighting flesh. You are not fighting personalities. You are confronting principalities. And the only way to defeat them is to walk so deeply with God that they recognize you not by your name, but by the authority you carry. Let your life be so hidden in God that when the enemy seeks you, he finds only light. And when he finds light, he flees. Let your footsteps be so anointed that every trap laid before you is destroyed before you ever reach it. Let your silence be so saturated with God's presence that it becomes a storm in the ears of the wicked. This is not merely about protecting your peace, it is about fulfilling your purpose. Every time you silence a demon, you protect the vision God has given you. Every time you shut the mouth of manipulation, you protect your destiny. This is why the battle is so intense. It's not just about your present, it's about your future. The enemy knows what you carry. He sees the seed God has planted in you, and he will send voices, faces, even familiar souls to try and abort what God is birthing. But I declare with every ounce of holy fire in me that nothing the enemy sends can stop what God has ordained. If you remain surrendered, if you remain sharp, if you remain silent when silence is sacred, and speak only when God commands, you do not need to be loud to be lethal. You do not need to be seen to be significant. Let your authority be known not by your voice but by your fruit. Let demons tremble not because you shouted but because you obeyed, because your heart is clean, because your motives are pure, because your spirit is still. That is the ultimate silence. That is the language darkness cannot translate. A soul at rest under the hand of God is louder than 1,000 prayers rooted in fear. And hear me now, when God begins to awaken your spirit, you will no longer tolerate what once felt normal. Your soul will become allergic to deception. Your heart will recoil from manipulation. Your ears will become sensitive to every word that carries poison wrapped in politeness. That is not sensitivity in the flesh. That is spiritual maturity. That is God sharpening your awareness, training your discernment, and preparing you to walk among wolves without being devoured. When you are truly aligned with God, you begin to detect spiritual climates. You can walk into a room and know instantly something here is not right. You can shake a hand and sense the spirit behind the smile. That is not paranoia. It is the wisdom of God, and it is a shield to those who walk uprightly. But let me speak deeper into the soul of someone who has been worn down by demonic voices for far too long. You've cried in silence. You've battled thoughts no one could see. You've questioned your sanity while the enemy whispered guilt, shame, regret, and confusion into the caverns of your mind. But I declare in the name of God Most High, your mind is not a playground for the enemy. Your thoughts are not the enemy's territory. You are not crazy. You are under spiritual siege. And the reason it's been so intense is because God is building something through you that hell cannot afford to see completed. So the enemy has turned up the volume. But now is your moment to fight back, not with panic, but with presence. The presence of God. The presence that anchors you when your emotions try to run wild. The presence that brings stillness to your storm. Do not negotiate with tormenting voices. Do not analyze what God has called you to rebuke. The enemy is subtle, and he loves to package lies in logic. He'll whisper through memories, through emotions, through situations, and if you do not confront those voices with spiritual clarity, you will begin to believe they are your own. But the child of God must learn to separate identity from attack. Not every thought belongs to you. Not every feeling came from within you. Some of them were planted, some of them were whispered, some of them were forged in hell and wrapped in your own insecurities to make them believable. But your weapon is truth, the truth that God is with you, the truth that you are guarded, the truth that your soul is off limits to any spirit that does not carry the mark of divine purpose. You want to silence demons in people. Begin by silencing them in yourself. Confront the bitterness you've been nursing. Tear down the pride that's been disguising itself as strength. Destroy the lust that's been camouflaging itself as desire. Demons gain legal access through compromise. They build strongholds where we allow excuses. But when you purge your soul before God, when you clean out every room and say, no more darkness, no more delay, no more open doors, the enemy has no choice but to leave. Not because you screamed, but because your obedience has evicted him. And do not be deceived. True power is not in spiritual theater, it's in consistency. Anyone can perform power in a moment, but only those who walk with God daily carry real lasting authority. And that authority is not for show, It's for sanctity. It's not to impress the crowd. It's to command your atmosphere. When you have authority from God, demons don't wait for your rebuke. They flee from your consistency. When your life is clean, your home is guarded. When your motives are pure, your words carry weight. When your soul is steady, your silence becomes a wall the enemy cannot penetrate. And listen, some demons don't leave because you haven't made it uncomfortable enough for them to go. You've adjusted to their presence. You've softened the conviction. You've ignored the warning signs, but today is the day to flip the tables. Today is the day to bring light into every dark corner. God didn't save you to coexist with chaos. He called you to rule over it, to bring divine order, to reclaim your soul, to cleanse your environment, and it starts with a declaration. This ground belongs to God. My soul belongs to God. My mind, my body, my atmosphere, all of it belongs to God. And every demon, every liar, every manipulator, every tormentor has no place here. And what happens when you take that stand? The pressure increases, the fire rises, the resistance grows. But that's when you must remember, warfare is not a sign that you're losing, it's a sign that you've become a threat. If the enemy is fighting you, it means you've already wounded him with your presence. He knows what's coming. He knows the strength you're about to walk in. He sees the clarity being birthed in your mind. He hears the prayers that are about to shift entire atmospheres. And so he attacks, but do not back down. Do not surrender ground you've been called to claim. You were made for this moment. Some of you are being used by God to break generational curses. That's why the battle is fierce. You're not just silencing demons for yourself. You're silencing demons that have spoken through your bloodline for decades. You're shutting down lies that lived in your family. You're breaking the cycles of abuse, addiction, betrayal, and fear. And when you do that, the enemy fights with fury. But you do not fight alone. Every time you resist, God reinforces you. Every time you speak truth, God strengthens your spine. Every time you reject temptation, God draws nearer. This is not about feelings, this is about faithfulness. You may feel weak, but your consistency is deadly to darkness. And now I speak directly to the ones who feel abandoned in their assignment. You've obeyed and still you've lost people. You've surrendered and still doors have closed. You've walked in purity and still accusations have come. But hear me, every rejection is divine. Every closed door is protection. Every isolation is consecration. God is setting you apart because the level of warfare you are called to walk in requires a level of purity few are willing to carry. He is not punishing you, He is preserving you. And the demons that once spoke freely in your presence are now being choked by the weight of your silence. This is how you win, not by shouting louder, but by standing cleaner. Not by reacting stronger, but by walking wiser. Not by forcing change, but by becoming so unshakably rooted in God that change follows you. The demons in others will either repent or retreat, but they will not remain comfortable. Because the Spirit in you is not passive, it is not convenient, it is holy, and holiness is hostile to darkness. So walk in that authority, own that assignment, stop explaining it, stop apologizing for it, stop watering it down to keep peace with people who've made peace with their demons. You were not born to blend in, you were born to break chains, to upset patterns, to disrupt spiritual systems that have kept people bound for too long. Let God speak through your silence. Let Him roar through your purity. Let Him reign in your stillness. This is your moment. This is your mantle. This is your territory to reclaim. Silence the noise. Guard the gate. Shut down the spirit that tries to speak through confusion, bitterness, or manipulation. You are not just a person, you are a vessel of divine fire, and every step you take, every decision you make, every battle you endure is testifying that God is alive in you. Let the world tremble, let the demons scream. You walk on, because those who walk with God cannot be shaken, and they do not need to speak loudly to silence every evil voice around them. The authority of God will always speak louder than the threats of darkness.